From the time we first open our eyes and are able to perceive colors, we are fascinated with heroes. Children may not understand the philosophy or psychology of a hero, yet they can easily become encapsulated by the virtuous acts of other people. Batman happens to be one that many get drawn into, but Batman is no ordinary hero. In fact, one may be challenged to call him a hero at all. He is a dark individual. He's suffering from the loss of his parents, and that manifests itself as being a very dark person. He also blurs the lines quite often. He does anything he thinks he needs to do to ensure justice and to uphold justice, with the exception of killing. So he does have a line in the sand, and that line in the sand is killing. But other than that, Batman kind of just does whatever the hell he wants in this fight for justice. So is Batman someone that we should look up to, and could we label him as a hero or a stoic sage? And is a stoic sage a hero, or is it more than a hero? Well, let's start by defining that word, hero. We can all name them. We can name some fictional ones: Superman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman. If you're not a fan of fiction, we could reference history. Martin Luther King Jr., King Arthur, Albert Einstein, Socrates. These are people that are generally considered to be heroes, or at least something resembling a hero. So which qualities make someone a hero? And fundamentally, it seems to be courage. If you think about Martin Luther King Jr., Albert Einstein, Socrates, King Arthur, it seems to be courage, and not just boldness, but courage. Stoic courage, meaning heroes must be courageous and formidable. It simply would not do for Superman to be bold had he also not the strength to enact change. So courage in the Stoic sense also means strength. Strength is often represented in superhero movies as being physical. Really, it's mental strength that makes one truly strong. It's the same as courage, strength meaning. Strength, fortitude, courage, these are all the same thing in Stoicism. So courage means many things. It means speaking the truth when appropriate. It means charging into battle. Sometimes it means retreating from battle. It depends on the context. It means living in such a way that considers risk, but doesn't let fear overcome their actions. Heroes are also wise. They're temperate. They're just. Those are the four cardinal virtues, of course: courage, wisdom, courage, and temperance. So, in sum, we could define a hero as essentially the Stoic sage, more or less. And that's the whole idea. Who are we aspiring to be like? Who is worth aspiring to be like? And the Stoic sage is a person of virtue. It's someone who's worth being like, or at least aspiring to be like. It's a person who has good character and works for the common good, as Marcus Aurelius would tell us. Now, what's interesting about the way that Stoicism defines and visualizes Stoic sages, or maybe we could call them Stoic heroes, is that two sages could be entirely different from one another. Two sages could be fighting each other in a war. Why? Because virtue to the Stoic is about doing what is appropriate, and what is appropriate depends on the context of your life. It's a very individualistic thing. A sage on one side of the war could be fighting with good intentions, as could the sage on the other side of the war. They could be fighting each other, and they both could be sages. The fact that two sages can be entirely different will help us explain later on the virtue of Batman. So I'll be using Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight as reference here. In The Dark Knight movie, that's number 2 in the 3-part series, we have two heroes. Batman, of course, and Harvey Dent. Now we all know Batman. He's a dark, troubled person, and he works in the shadows. Harvey Dent is the opposite, in some sense. He's the public district attorney. He shows his face. He works in the light. He works with the system of laws. Batman is the Dark Knight. Harvey Dent is the White Knight. So in this movie, the city of Gotham has needed Batman to help tip the scales towards justice. But that time seems to be coming to an end. You see, when a group of people become so corrupt, the system ultimately becomes corrupt, it's near impossible to implement positive change. And we can look at a real-world example here. Let's take a look at our political systems in Canada and the USA. We have politicians on both sides, all sides. Their characters are crap. They character attack all the time. They attack each other's characters. They don't attack their points. They're corrupt. They seem to leave office with a tremendous amount of money, which is unjustified by their salaries, which is a little suspicious, and so on. Now, I don't want to get deep into politics, but the point I'm trying to make is that in our political system, you see an example where it's so corrupt that for anyone to go through that system has to be corrupt themselves to some degree. The system wouldn't even entertain them anyway. And it's the classic thing that people tell themselves when they're starting off on a journey. I will become corrupt now, just a little bit, just this little bit of corruption, just until I get into power, and then I will enact change. Now, the problem with that is that by the time they get to power, they have changed themselves. Not the system, themselves. They've changed. They've grown cynical, and they've grown corrupt. Now let's get back to Batman. Gotham is a corrupt city. And so Bruce Wayne decides that the best way to tip the scales towards justice is not through the system, because the system's too corrupt. It's not going to work. He thinks the best way to fight crime is through, well, putting on a mask at night and fighting crime. Doing so allows him to fight injustice in ways that the system no longer can because it's so corrupt. For example, one of the villains in the movie is in the US, but then he escapes back to his home country of China. Now, the Gotham police does not have jurisdiction to go to China and arrest him. We can't do that today. But Batman can. He doesn't have a jurisdiction. He doesn't play by the same rules. He doesn't play by the system. So he goes to China, he kidnaps him, and he brings him back to justice. This system is so corrupt that the only way to fix it is to be corrupt. So Batman, in a sense, is corrupt because he's not following the system, but he's true to virtue, which we'll get into later. Now, that's a very slippery slope. Again, it's the same slope politicians fall into. I'm gonna just be a little bit corrupt here just until I get into power, and then I'm going to change things. Well, that doesn't work for most people. In The Dark Knight, Gotham City is a place where the district attorney, Harvey Dent, he may be able to take over justice using the system. So that's a good thing. So we have a corrupt city becoming less corrupt. And it's right at that point where, you know what, maybe we're at the point in our system where we no longer need Batman. Maybe we can have this white knight, this Harvey Dent, and he can use the system because it's no longer corrupt. Batman is the Dark Knight. Harvey is the White Knight. Batman covers his face and works in the shadows, not following any rules other than his own one rule, which is do not kill. Harvey Dent showcases his face all over the city, and he uses the law to fight crime. Unfortunately for Gotham, the villain, the Joker, he corrupts Harvey Dent. He murders his almost fiancée. And you can imagine how bitter and resentful that would make someone. So Harvey Dent, this knight in shining white armor, he turns into a villain. He ends up murdering people. He's not a Dark Knight. He's not like Batman. No, he's a villain. He's bad, period. His character is trash. He kidnaps the police commissioner's kids, and he threatens to kill them. He changes and starts standing for the opposite of what he used to. He used to stand for virtue, for good character, and for using the system to enact positive change, following the rules. And now he was a villain, murdering people. So, of course, what happens? Well, we all know it's a hero movie. Batman shows up. He saves the day. Harvey dies in the process. The villain, the now villain, the fallen White Knight, he dies. And the police commissioner, Gordon, and Batman are there, and they're thinking, what do we do? There's already been several deaths linked back to Harvey Dent at this point. He's already murdered people. And they think to themselves, they talk amongst themselves, well, if the city were to find out that Harvey Dent did that, that this knight in white shining armor, incorruptible, if this person could somehow be corrupted, how could you have any hope for your city? So they felt that if everyone knew what Harvey Dent did, this idol providing hope for them, then all of their hope would vanish. And just think for a moment about the importance of hope. Like Gotham was a city full of crime. Now all of a sudden they had someone courageous and virtuous who could fight crime not in a mask, not hiding in the shadows, not breaking the law, but using the law. And then this person, this white knight, falls and becomes a villain. Then Batman does something very interesting. He takes the fault for Harvey's murders. He tells Gordon, the policeman, that he would take the blame. And Alfred, his assistant, who knows Batman better than Batman, he says, and I quote, Batman stands for something more important than the whims of a terrorist, even if everyone hates him for it. That's the sacrifice he's making. He's not being a hero. He's being something more. Well, what does it mean to be more than a hero? How could someone possibly be more than a hero? Isn't that like saying being more than a virtuous person? Like being more than a stoic sage? How is that even possible? Well, no, let's unpack that a little bit. A hero is someone that we all get inspired by because of their virtue. Take some of those names I listed earlier. Martin Luther King Jr., Albert Einstein, Socrates. We know about their virtue. We know the great things they did. But hold on a second here. That actually isn't virtue. That's reputation. In other words, they are heroes because they have a reputation of being virtuous. And if we believe history, they were virtuous. But the fact that we know they were virtuous, that's reputation. But here's the thing. Virtue is not the same as reputation. Let me read you this quote. Be more concerned with your character than with your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. So the Stoics say, do not worry about your reputation. Why? Well, it's not up to you. You can't force people what to think of you. All you can do is have a good character and do what's right. Now, there's a formula between the two, character and reputation, but it's not an exact one. It's an approximate one. The formula is something like this. If you have a good character, you will have a good reputation in the long term. People will eventually find out that your character is good because in the long expanse of history, truth tends to wiggle its way out. But again, that is not an exact formula, and there's no guarantees. I can't guarantee that if you have a good character, that you're going to have a good reputation. I cannot guarantee that. I can't promise you that. In the case of The Dark Knight, Batman was more than a hero because he was acting virtuously at the cost of his reputation. He was being what Gotham needed. He wasn't concerned about the fact that everyone thought that he was a murderer because he felt that what Gotham needed more was the White Knight. And in fact, the Stoic hero, the Stoic sage, would do what Batman did. Not only did he focus on character over reputation, but he also destroyed his reputation through good character. His virtuous actions cost him his reputation. Heroes are those we look back on who have had both a good character and a good reputation. But what do we call those who have good characters but for whatever reason have had bad reputations? They are tarnished in the history books, though their actions have made the world better. You see, I think we call them Stoics. I think we call them Stoic sages. Stoics do not care about reputation. They stand for something way, way bigger than that. They stand for virtuous action, regardless of any recognition. They don't care about recognition because they realize that some things, virtue, are so much bigger than their own reputation. Should you be a white knight inspiring hope, or a dark knight ultimately saving today? Well, I think there's a place for both. I think there's a place for white knights, and I think there's a place for dark knights. But to the Stoic, it's kind of irrelevant. To the Stoic, you do good, regardless of who is watching or what anyone else thinks. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe with the notifications turned on. The Strong Stoic Podcast is also available in audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, you can join Substack to gain access to transcripts, articles, and premium podcast episodes.